Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening to all those who are now joining the GMS Live Voice of Democracy, the GMS Live Radio Guyana. Good evening to you all, to those who are now joining. Good evening, good night, good morning, good afternoon. Bonjour, bonne noite, boa tarde, to whichever part of the world you're now joining us from. A pleasant good evening. Good evening, yes. Good evening to those who are now joining. So, good evening to those and good night to those who are joining on the GMS Live Radio Guyana and also the GMS Live Voice of Democracy, live streaming here on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Good night to you all. This is Dr. Matthews in the house. Tonight, we're going to have a nice little conversation. It's going to be spicy, but it's going to be educative. Sorry, I may, as I may correct myself. So, hold on. Oh, brother. Yes. So, so we're gonna talk. We're gonna have a very serious conversation tonight. Very, very, very serious conversation tonight. And I would appreciate if you call in and join the conversation. And there's a few things that I want to set. So before I do that, good night from Guyana to the Caribbean Isles, the West Indian Isles, the Pacific Isles, the British Virgin Isles, the US Virgin Isles, Mexico, US, Canada, UK, EU, Beijing, Hong Kong, Japan, Taiwan, the Korean Peninsula, to those from Pakistan and Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, from India, from the Australian continent, and those in the Tonga Isles who still suffering from that effect of that volcanic eruption that happened a couple of days ago in the Tonga Wilds area, to those who are being affected in the New Zealand and Australian continent. Good night to you and good morning to whichever part of that particular area that you're now joining me from. Good night to those who are joining me from the south, from the African continent, to those who are joining from the South American continent as far as Chile and Argentina and places like Colombia, Venezuela, places like Brazil, to some who are joining from Suriname and the Netherlands, French and Dutch Guyana, Curacao, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and to the Republic of Barbados. Pleasant good night to you all. So, we have a little bone to pick tonight, and we are going to talk a bit on it. I had a conversation today, and I decided to change the topic tonight based upon the conversation. And I'll be inviting the young man who I had the conversation with today on the program. And to those who want to call in, you can join in, and we can have a very clean conversation. We can either agree to disagree and agree to agree on this conversation here this evening. What is the extended problem in understanding that there are certain international agreements that some people like myself would want to talk about? Now, here what's the thing. Yes, the conversation tonight is surrounding the two major political parties. I want us to have a good, clean discussion. To those who are in the comment section, I would like for us to take time to take heed of what is being said tonight by Dr. Matthews so we can be able to understand where our footings are. Just soon after the biannual delegate conference election of the People's National Congress, then you hear all of these shenanigans been taking place. I had a conversation today that aroused those same shenanigans. And to those who are listening, the shenanigans that I'm talking about is, how should I put it over? Is what is being happening in broad daylight. Now, let us discuss these shenanigans. The People's National Congress had an election. And after that election, the leadership of the party has changed. And because the leadership of the party has changed, the expectations of one individual would have been replaced by the former leader, Mr. David Arthur Granger. But because those expectations would have changed, you find there are two positions within the party. Position number one is the leadership of the party, which is Mr. Aubrey Norton. And position number two is the head of the list of electors, regional and local, which is Mr. David Arthur Granger. To those who are listening, I want you to understand where I'm making sense and where I'm not. This topic came up to me a while ago, and when I did some investigation, I'm telling you now based upon my investigation. It came up today again, and it tells me plain that there are others who are understanding where the understanding where the partyship, the leader of the party lies, the information that is gathered. Granger is the head of the list of all the combined parties that makes up their partnership for national unity. When he was the head of that list, he was also the head of the People's National Congress. That was the agreement. And there is what you call a committee that sits at that on that list, and that committee votes who become the head of that list of parties and as the opposition leader. And that committee, in its agreement, would have automatically voted for the party with the most candidates, the most seats, to become the head of the opposition. That information now would have been furnished to GCOM. So, in case of an election, and the combined parties, along with the Alliance for Change, would have won the elections, the head of that list would have become the presidential candidate. That means the president, if they would have won the elections. So they did not win the elections. Quote unquote. It was taken away from them and someone was installed. So what happened? Mr. David Granger, who is the head of that list and would have now become the opposition leader of that list, now make a replacement with the agreement of the committees of combined party or the committee so as to say, quote unquote, would have chosen and made the agreement that Mr. Harmon would have replaced Mr. Granger as the opposition leader. So, this is what is really getting me confused. Now, if the head of that list would have been or would have replaced himself with someone under him, which is Mr. Harmon, would have realized that their party that they're representing would have what you call a biannual Congress elections every 2 years. Someone say 18 months. I don't know much. Now, if you would have made such decisions, you would have realized that your position as head of the party could have or would have been changed every 2 years. It cannot remain the same. Because here why? Let us say the head of that list is only being replaced every 5 years. Every 5 years, the head of the list of their Partnership for National Unity could only be changed every 5 years via way of an election of regional and general elections. Now, the party that you're representing, which you are head of the list, has elections every 2 years that you call a biannual Congress election to choose the leader of the party. So let us say the leader is changed. Who is the head of that list? Now you have a different person. Now you're not in charge of the executive arm of the party anymore because the leadership would have changed, which you are. Now, because the leadership would have changed, how can you, who is the head of that list, still represents the party in question if you are not a leader or if you are not the duly elected leader of the party? So I was thinking, kind of makes sense. Now, here was the problem. To those who are looking, I am only talking about the solutions that needs to happen. But before the solutions, I'm showing the problem that needs to have a solution to it. Now, an election occurred. Somebody else won the leadership of the party. Now, you don't want to step down as the leader of the opposition because you were replaced or you were placed in that position of the head of the list that was presented to GCOM. Now, the head of that list is the representation, becomes the representation of the combined parties, which is a partnership for national unity. When the head of that list now is being approached, come remember now, the head of that list stepped down from being the opposition leader and have somebody else being placed there as the opposition leader. You understand what I mean? Whilst he would have ascertained the leadership of the party. That means the position was created in such a way that Joseph Harmon becomes the, how should I put it over? The delegated representative of the leader of the party. That means Mr. Granger would have delegated his powers and responsibilities to Mr. Harmon to act in his capacity as the opposition leader, whilst he remains the leader of the party. That arrangement is not autographed in the agreement. That was done between the two individuals. Now, the leadership of the party has changed. Now we're having three leaders of the party. of the People's National Congress. Bear confusion. We have the head of the list that could only be changed every 5 years, which is Mr. David Granger. The head of that list could only be changed every 5 years, which is Mr. David Granger. We have the leadership of the party. The head of the list is so separate that he is not even part of the executive of the PNC, but he's the head of the list of delegates submitted to GCOM. Mr. Norton now is the leader of the People's National Congress Reform. And Mr. Joseph Harmon is the opposition leader. Mr. Joseph Harmon is not stepping aside because the head of the list of the combined parties has put him there. So it's only the head of the list of the combined parties can remove him from there. So what tells me now that Mr. Granger is still the leader of the People's National Congress Reform? Because if the head of the list of combined parties is still active, that person still have that authority to remove or to place persons on that list. It makes it confusing. Now, this is what now gets me more focused upon all this shenanigans that is going on. There is an international agreement before the biannual Congress elections between two persons, Jagdeo and David Granger, by two different governments of the United States of America by the State Department. This conversation erupted today because you can tell how the person who was talking to me was so interested in bringing it out. But he didn't even know that I was even focused on it some more because I wanted to know what is it that they're not letting go of. And the two international agreement was made by two different governments, one by the Obama administration, one by the Donald Trump administration, by two different leaders. One was promised and given promises by the Jack Doe, and the other one was done by the same thing of the David Granger. Now, here what's the problem? The main important thing that we need to look at, Aubrey Norton is now elected as leader of the People's National Congress because he becomes the man of the people who serves the interests of the people and not interests of foreign companies or governments. He serves the interests of the people. So they become a clash for an understanding in which part of the aisle does he sit. Because we have two agreements by two different governments of one country that represents the State Department. That the State Department represents them. I'm talking about the United States of America. So those interests now becomes a clash because in order for Aubrey Norton to go into Parliament, you will now have to have an agreement representing the interests of international governments and organizations. He will now have to be put to sat down or to sit down and to discuss to see if he can follow on the agreements that was occurred. The problem is that he is a man of the people. That's the problem. A man of the people, for the people, by the people. I want y'all to understand me who are listening, because this thing got some feathers tickling it up and down and got people on the both sides of the aisle dancing. And they don't know how to dance because you got a man in the middle. You know, when they sing this tune, the color girl in the ring, cha la 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 la. You got the circle, the PNC, the PPP, and the APNU and the AFC. That's the circle. And they got one person in the middle. This is color girl, but the color girl ain't taking tickle with the feather, because the color girl represents the interest of those who are sitting in the stands, the onlookers, the public, the will of the people. Remember that you had this little umbrella affair the other day with James Bond and wherever Muhammad the guy name represents. James Bond represents the PNC. His friend represents both sides of the aisle, because the organization that he represents, Muhammad Incorporated, the organization that he represents has friends on both sides of the aisle, in the PPP and the APNU AFC. So you see where the tickling start. Maybe the father represents the PPP and the son represents the PNC, because he talked it in his own social media network. He said when the PNC or the APNU went in power, they supported them. They gave them money. That's what he said. Now the PPP in power, it's the same thing around. So you got to understand where this tickling start and it coming down. It's changing the perceptions of the public. It's changing the perceptions in your views. So then we now have to operate and accept the normal political way of things, of how it's going on now. Believe you me, we now have to understand the shenanigans of how, what is the normal thing, the normal way of the political life and culture in Guyana. And it's very, very dangerous, because now we got politicians playing with your perceptions, encouraging concepts of your own ideas, because they're helping to create the platform. So when they put it out there, you don't got choice but to accept it. But here is the problem. The problem is, how should we have a man of the people now to become the representative of the people? How can Aubrey Norton now represent the people? Y'all get my point? We got two people claiming that according to according to the committee and the articles that stands as the leader of the list of the APNU AFC, should be the one now who should replace or talk about taking away those from the list who are now parliamentarians. Whilst the leader of the party cannot be represented in parliament, because they have to have a mutual understanding upon international agreements that was made somewhat a time ago. Y'all don't get tied up with these agreements, you know. Some of them agreements was made with the understanding of both political parties knowing their agreement. It is how the politics is being played out there pertaining to ascertaining the agreement. We got one party playing the race vote, which is the PPP, and the racist ideologies. And we got the APNU AFC trying to find out where they can get this unity from so they can start to lay the groundwork of how the political norms should be. They got one man in the middle who is tending now to not to want to play the fiddler's game. You see, that's why on my show, I keep saying one thing. I keep saying one thing over and over. Politics is not a thing I don't like at all because they got certain games, certain agreements that you would make would not be in the best interest of Guyanese. That is what is playing out before us. Check the nonsense that is being fed to us on a daily basis, and you should understand. Nobody's making noise about the elections petition that is going to the CCJ. Nobody. According to Article 25(5) of the Constitution, every and any electoral matters of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, the last court is the appellate court. Nobody's coming out to protest that. Y'all get my point? But people are coming out to protest other things. The important things. The important things that matters to this country the most. Nobody's coming out to protest. Everybody doing their own thing. Now, so when you turn on the media now you're finding all these people are now heading over to Congress Place to meet with the new leader of the People's National Congress. Let me tell you all something. I don't have a problem. They're going there to meet. Like as usual, everybody can turn up to meet. But they got certain things that are taking place within our political culture that we're not asking the questions about. We're not asking those particular questions. Why this? Why that? We're not coming up with questions in our brains trying to say or trying to ask the questions, why is this political nonsense playing out before us? We got the PPP who seems to adjust themselves now, and nobody seems to still question why they're there illegally. All of that now is being slowly swept under the bus. When you see certain things playing out in the media, social media, and all these things, it is because it's a distraction to certain things. It is to take your mind and your eyes off the prize, Guyanese. What is involved here is hundreds of billions of dollars. And these people are approaching the politicians first instead of the people who put them there. The best interests of Guyanese. You see them protesting today on the East Bank in front of the the offshore company that represents Exxon. You see them protesting. Why are we being distracted from the things that matters the most to us when things are being slowly swept under a carpet and no questions asked? Everybody, everybody, ask yourself that question. Now you're seeing all the different people turning up on the social media, fine. But are they representing the interests of Guyanese? Are they speaking the things that matters the most? Are they educating you on the facts, the real facts of what is going on? Ask yourself the question. You got three leadership of one party. One who becomes the leader of the list, one who becomes the leader of the party, and one who holds on to opposition. And nobody, just two of them, agreeing to themselves. YM issue a statement today, Office of the Opposition Leader, not in support of the leader of the PNC, but you want to know exactly what is playing out in the political culture of this country. Suddenly, the interest of the contract that Exxon's supposed to revisit every 5 years die down. Nobody talking about it. We don't know or want to see how beneficial is it to us. Suddenly nobody talking about nothing pertaining to that. Suddenly the Natural Resources Fund Act that was abused the other day in Parliament, and suddenly one rise up of 2022. No, sorry, of 2021. It's not the interest anymore. Suddenly, after 2 weeks would have passed that was given to the PPP, in the third week, they decide to come out to say, we're going to approach the Caribbean Court of Justice pertaining to the judgment of the appellate court. Nobody's challenging it. Suddenly, suddenly, the policeman that is in charge of killing the businessman from Dartmouth, Essequibo, was placed on $1 million bail. A man who can't even afford $500,000. I want to know who paid the bill. Let me tell you something. When you see certain things are playing out, when you see certain things are playing out in the general public, and the true story or the matter of the fact is not being addressed, it is because it's to distract you. There is an international agreement. Let me reiterate. It is always an agreement, especially with an oil producing country that is now on the rise that calls the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. And companies and countries are going to come to this country to find the best deal ever in their interests, not for the interests of Guyanese. When you see politicians start dying down in the rhetoric because the interests of Guyanese are not furthered anymore. When you see the interests of things that makes no sense in the media that keeps catching the eye, the top story of the day, that doesn't even represent the voice or the will of the people, suddenly you should ask the question. People, hold your elected representative accountable. Hold them. Hold your elected representatives accountable. Don't allow these people to walk by you. Politics is a game. It's a closet of dirty secrets. Want you all to understand that. There are good politicians and they are bad. And the bad one most obviously outweighs the good because most of them are there because of their own political interests. And in a country like Guyana, they wait until they're elected, take away your will, and when it's time for their election, they give you back 5% of it and they keep 95%. When it's time to hold them accountable, you can't catch them because it becomes difficult. Believe you me. I want to see if I can get on to my friend presently, an individual whom I would normally talk with. I think this is one of the individual. Just hold a minute for me, please. A, a pleasant good night to you, sir. I think today we had a wonderful discussion upon a topic that I was running with all the time in my mind, and I really wanted to address it, but I chose tonight because we had one of the most healthy discussion on that same topic. One of them were international agreements between governments and politicians that we may deem to be an elected representative of our will. So I want to continue that conversation with you this evening. And you can go right ahead as we left off this afternoon. Go ahead. Hmm. Mm. Yes, I think I got boot off there a bit when I'm trying to get this conversation going. But by the way, though, there was that conversation today that when we were talking earlier, when we were talking about what affects us the most as a country, and I think it is the educational, from an educational point of view, where accountability is something that we're struggling with as a country. A proper accountability. And we need to understand as a people, we need to keep on fighting for that accountability. That's what makes a country a democracy. When we keep when we keep asking them constantly to provide proper accountability, not only for the spending of our money, or not only for the political vantage point that they have, but to keep us properly informed. That is one of the basic ideas. That is one of the basic ideas, to keep us properly informed. And we keep misusing our understanding, we keep misunderstanding, as a matter of fact, sorry, we keep misunderstanding what really is the role of our politicians. They are there to be a public servant, to give service to us. That is the constitutionally amended rights to Guyanese. Politicians, they are there to become servants to the people, to the population, not to do as they feel like or do what they want. Can't work. We cannot work. We need to get serious. We can't work. You can't walk around this. We cannot. I don't know if persons are hearing me, but I think I can hear as loud, as clear as possible. So I want you to indicate to me if you are hearing me. If you are not, still indicate, because I'm trying to get this audio sort out. So I'm still up and running. Oh yes, I think they said they now have sound. Yes. So I want us to don't be misled. Don't be misunderstood. Do not be beaten around the bush. Transparency is something we need to constantly get from our politicians. Believe me, they would not sit down and give us that transparency. No government sits down and give you transparency unless the people don't demand transparency. It is simple. That's why I use in the beginning of the show, in the beginning of our conversation tonight, I use the present problems with the APNU AFC. You understand? Hold on. Let me see if I can take this call from the phone. Good night to you, sir.
Up again. Now, what we have recently is we just had
You need to speak up a bit. I'm not hearing you.
yes, we just had Comrade Norton elected. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes. Good. Now, he was just elected on December the 18th. It's just
Mm,
about roughly 30 days.
mm,
Now, what we also have is the issue of accountability, as you so mentioned.
mm,
Now, here is where Chinese have to now, from henceforth, going forward, have a different strategy. I'm talking about Guyanese as the
mm,
voters, we the voters in the
mm,
movement.
mm,
We have to say to our elected representative, Mr. Ari Norton, we want you, we like you, we support you. However, we cannot support you without confidence and trust.
mm,
We cannot support you blindly as we supported Granger.
mm,
We're not doing it anymore. Granger already laid the groundwork and the blueprint of what we should never do again in Guyana as far as political representatives. We must hold them to the banner of transparency. Granger was not transparent, he was unilateral. Now we're saying if Aubrey Norton is going to take over, Aubrey Norton needs to be transparent. First thing out the gate. We need to let him know we support him, but we are not going for the gaff.
Mm.
We're not looking for friends. We're looking for representatives. We give you our vote, you give us proper representation. Sufficient and meaningful representation. We ain't looking for friendship.
Mm.
Okay? Now, Comrade Norton needs to be able to show us that he's accountable. He needs to give us a measure, a large degree of transparency that is owed to us by the Constitution. We demand that. We expect that. We're not having this gaffe like we did with Granger. Trust him. He take the vote and go off, and we don't know what he's doing. This is why we have issues like this Exxon Mobil situation.
Mm.
And a lot of other issues which are going on. Guyanese, I'm saying it's a new day. When we have the vote, we hold the knife by the handle. We're not letting no politicians hold the knife by the handle or the gun by the trigger. We holding the gun and we holding the trigger. That means we hold the vote. We can't have political leaders having meetings with Sarah Lynch, having meetings with the CARICOM secretary, having meetings with the British Commonwealth, who just came again the other day, having meetings with the United States Foreign Department, State Department, and we the people are left in the blind. Political leaders are making secret deals which they believe that only them in the party and the party executive needs to know. But we the people, the sovereigns, the voters, we must know. And every time you talk to these political leaders, oh, we have to consult with the party executive. Nonsense. Did the party executive vote for you in parliament to make you parliamentarians? Is the party executive put their votes together and they can't elect you in the next election? So stop talking nonsense to us, the people. We're not going for that. And that's, I'm saying it to Mr. Aubrey Norton, I'm saying it to Harman, I'm saying it to Granger. Stop telling us that you're going to make private deals, you're going to talk to the executive, but you're not talking to the we the people. We're not having a show anymore. And those politicians that continue to think they could talk to us in that manner, they might as well just go on and just move on out. Because it's going to get to the point where we the people are going to continue to hold you accountable. We want transparency. And if you can't do that, you're going to find yourself on your way out as soon as you come in. As I said, we would like to have Comrade Norton, but he must know we're not looking for friends, we're looking for meaningful representation. If you're making foreign policy deals with Sarah Lynch, we need to know if you're continuing the same thing that Granger is doing. Comrade Norton, we watching. We're not trying to disrespect Comrade Norton. We want to keep Comrade Norton trustworthy, honest, accountable, and transparent. That is what the Constitution says. That is what the manifesto says. Because here is the danger. The danger is that if we don't ask what's going on with Sarah Lynch, because all of a sudden Sarah Lynch wants to meet Aubrey Norton. But it's expected, it's normal to meet with the opposition. It's the proper thing to do. Meet with the opposition as well as the majority party. That is the proper thing to do. But all of a sudden, everybody wants to meet with Aubrey Norton since the situation in Parliament with the mace and all of that, and they fly in from the CARICOM Secretariat. They want to meet with him, and the Canadian Commission wants to meet with him. Fine. At the same time, Granger is not giving Aubrey Norton the keys to the seat up top. Granger is not stepping aside and say, "Hey, Aubrey, take over things." Because Granger wants to make a deal with Aubrey and says, "Look, Aubrey, either you continue and do like I am doing secretly with the Americans, or I, Granger, I'm not stepping down and giving you the seat to be the head of the coalition in Parliament." See, Granger wants Aubrey to deal, and the Americans are pressuring Granger to pressure Aubrey to deal. So when Aubrey wants to get in Parliament and lead Parliament, Granger's saying, "You got to give me something, Aubrey." And Aubrey's saying, "What you want?" And Granger said, "I want you to continue to honor the agreements that I made with America.
Hmm, 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 hmm.
And if you do that, well, I will step aside and let you take over the reins." So Aubrey got to now sign on the line and bind himself to the things which Granger previously agreed to and Jack Deal also previously agreed to. And if Aubrey doesn't agree to that, in my thesis, in my theory, if Aubrey doesn't agree to that, then Granger is not handing nothing over to Aubrey, because
Okay.
Granger still holds the seat as head of the coalition. Now, here's the thing.
Now hold on, wait, wait. We got 3 more minutes, so let us try to conclude in that, right? Because I want to
Okay,
get
3 more minutes. Yeah,
right.
now, good, good, gotcha. Now, here's the thing.
Hmm.
Granger, during Obama's administration, agreed to certain foreign policy things. He's tied on a foreign policy. Then Trump came and threw that to the side and made an agreement with Jack Dill and them.
Hmm.
So the Americans tied the PNC coalition and the PPP hand and foot. Tied it from the left, tied it from the right.
So they got to go back and do the same thing that they want them to do.
So tied it from the left, tied it from the right, and say, "Look, we're gonna give you this much. We're gonna give you protection of Venezuela." Guyana wants that. Now the problem is that if you notice, Basil and them and Valdelans and them were not on agreement with conceding. Granger want to concede, and Basil and them saying, "Hey, that declaration with the in abeyance by Mingo March the 13th, that's gonna be in conflict." What Granger said, "I'm the president here. What I say goes. If I say I'm standing with the declaration when the declaration is done by Carter Singh, I will stand by that." Meantime, Basil saying something quite the opposite. Why is Basil saying something the opposite about something in abeyance?
Okay. Okay. Yes.
The lower people in the party, like Valdelans and them, the bottom up on the street, they didn't know what Granger and Harman know at the top.
Hmm.
But as they begin to realize
Hmm. On. Oh, a pleasant good evening to you.
Now you do not know me, but my sister follow up your program in Florida.
Okay.
She sent me a token to give to you. I would like to know how can I get
Well,
into that with you?
you're live on my show, so let me wait till I come off and then I call you back.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Right? Okay, good. Thank you very much. I think what was expected of everybody in Guyana is that we expected that a change in the way the political system goes in this country, a change that be we can depend upon the transparency of a political party, transparency on politicians, a transparency on what is yet to come and what has left us. We expect that. We don't want to be gathering assumptions. We don't want to sound like illusionists in Guyana that suddenly our own illusions bypass the real deal. It's just that every single body that we talk about is leaving us to dry in the wilderness. It's hanging us out on a line in the midst of the desert sun that is killing us all as Guyanese. And we're not profiting from it. We're not. We're not profiting from it. Then we have to have people like me who's trying to gather around the shenanigans as we talk about again. Because there are international deals that are being made. And suddenly everybody gets quiet. Same thing I'm talking about. Everybody gets quiet. The National Resources Fund bill that came in 2021 supposed to still got protests. The night cold and rain fall and the police supposed to out on the road right now trying to calm we down. The interests of the people is not there. I'm telling you straight up, Guyanese, this is what we have. This is what we have. We left with. This is what we got to deal with. Are you serious? You can imagine people of all races are looking now to Aubrey Norton to make statements, to come out there and tell people that he's a representative of the people, because everybody knows that the PPP has no interest of the people at heart. Everybody knows that. The smallest child could tell you that. Because people are now beginning to suffer. People are now beginning to suffer. Where are the interests of the people? By our politicians. Where are they? Where are the representation of the people? It is the will of the people. It's constitutional. Nothing more else. Everybody, their only interest is in millions of dollars. Millions of US dollars. Nothing more else. And we're having serious problems in that manner because all the representation of the people gone through the door. I look, I just sit down and I look at all the videos that are up, the social media representatives, everybody who has a talk show, and I'm looking for the major interests that has the people at heart. And these people are politicians. These people are member of parliament. That's why I say on my show, I cannot entertain you. If I do, that means I'm. How should I put it over? Oh, brother, believe you me. That means I agree with your oppressive state that you're living in. If I sit down and do the things that everybody do, I got to educate you. It's a must. And then when I finish educating you, then they have the black people whose interest I gotta put at heart. Because we're not only being misinformed, we're being misinformed, miseducated, we're being putting in a position where we can't even afford to do certain things. The only thing left for us to do is fight against each other. And it's tearing us apart. I told you from since the inception of my program, I said the PPP wants to create two class among black people: the poor class and the working class. And this is how they do it. Put you to fight against each other because both of us ain't know which way we going. We know which road we trotting down. And there's so many secrecy in the political closets that those who are politicians can't come out and talk because they signed the memorandum of understanding about following the interests of the people. I'm serious. This is a hot topic. It is. It's a very, very, very hot topic. And nobody wants to brace it. Nobody wants to sit down and inform the people collectively. One person, the entire Guyana, has an interest of following so they can represent them because they see what has happened in his election to the head of the party. And even to that becomes an obstacle and a problem. Because to allow him to represent the interests of the people becomes a problem. You ever ask yourself one question, the reason why? Are you serious? Look how long the election happened. Look how long that election happened. Oh man. Look how long that election happened since last month, the 18th of December. The 18th or the 21st. I can't even remember which one of them days. Since last year, December 2021. This is January 2022. Actually, a whole month gone. We can't fix this. Are you serious? We just can't fix this. That's why today I was promoting Black Love on my show because it's supposed to be a full representation of what I do. Seriously, because this is who I am. Believe you me. Black love, what does it mean? It means no to brutality, no to agony, no to torture. No of all these things has, hold on. No to all these things has ever driven me to beg for mercy. I would rather die with my head high, my faith unshaken, and a profound trust in the destiny of my people rather than live in slavery. That's what black love represents. And a contempt for the sacred principles. I prefer promote black love because it's against all of these things: tyranny, oppression, slavery, murder, mayhem, and all these things. Political thievery, no to all these things. We got to be serious, man. Are we really a country of one people, one nation, one destiny? Ask ourselves these questions. Even to the politicians that we giving praise to, which is the PPP, some of we doesn't even have the interest of elevating one people, one nation, and one destiny because it doesn't. They do not care. Now we gone so bad that this whole hunger for oil and the money are now taking away our food security. They are privileging the lands where people are planting to make sure that their produce can be sold. All these things can happen. They're privileging it, pilferaging it, destroying it. Now basic commodity becomes so expensive, it's actually the farmer who's left back telling you it's so expensive to rear that this is the price it got to go at. I don't know since when you got to beat the greens and the provision and the fruits to grow. It's simple sun and rain, and these get all year round in this country. Suddenly, these things are expensive. All we got to do is replant the root. Since when? Since when it becomes so expensive for these things to grow? Since when? Our soil is so fertile, we didn't even got to put down an atomic bomb for it to grow. Anything can grow in Guyana. Suddenly, we are a nation now becoming hungry. We can't afford to buy basic commodity. Guyana, hold our elected representatives accountable. I know what telling y'all. By the way, though, this the GMS Live, Rachel Guyana, and the GMS Live Voice of Democracy comes to you with the kind compliments of event management services, a place that you can get your events well planned out, your transportation, your meetings, and your planning arrangements. Events management services 6210197. The number you should call, and Greenleaf Distributors, where you can get your local produce packaged and ready to give service to you to those who are in need, and especially in a cheap cost and a price where it can be able to be delivered to you at a particular time period. Same number again, 6210197. Please call that number and you'll be able to give services. So the Black Love t-shirts that people are calling so much to make that arrangement, we can also have that arrangement done. To those who are overseas, I know the price is 30 US dollars, but for shipping and handling would be different. And because we got to get some persons in that particular state that can deliver this thing to you. Remember, we're trying to, the GMS Live is trying to reach out to those who are willing not only to contribute to the growth of the Gavin Matthews live show, but to contribute to the strength and the growth to representation of information and education. I want to thank all those who have joined with me within this hour, and I want to say thank you very much once again. Stay safe, be careful, sanitize yourself, wear a mask, and don't forget the little children you take into public places. This is Dr. Matthews saying good night and Cheerios for now.